Welcome to the MBVS show. Bam! I'm your host, the one with all the looks. He dances, he cooks. I'm Mark Hayford, and joining me, rock star panel today on Mind, Body, Voice, and Soul. We're talking mental wellness with some of the best in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the man with all the books coming to you from the Big Apple. It looks like fried, spelled like Freed. When he's not on CNN or BBC News, he's right here on your YouTube, baby. It's Dr. Norman Freed.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here today. And
I can't wait to read your five-time authored book by you. It's coming out, so we'll talk about that later. Now, let's go to the girl who should always have a tan because she always has a plan. She's down south. She's got a great mouth. She gives voiceover. Forget about it. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. She is a children's author. She is a podcaster. She's a voiceover artist, and she is a mental wellness warrior. It's my friend, Barb Heller.
What's up? So good to be here.
From the beautiful rolling hills and valleys and dips and all the greatness and rainbows from Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to have a neuroscientist who's also a professor because it just legitimizes your YouTube channel show. Let's hear it for Dr. Haley Nelson.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here.
Rotating a fresh new face into our panel. He's in a different time zone, baby. He's on another planet. He's coming all the way from across the pond from Ireland. Top of the morning to you. Mindset coach, radio host, certified mental wellness practitioner, the Doug Gordon. Again, thanks for coming back, everybody. We're just in the early stages of doing this. Mind, body, voice, soul, and I have to tell you, there's a buzz about what we're doing because it's needed in the world, and we do this all in the name of mental wellness. So thank you, everyone, for coming back again. Guys, Doug, first time here, but welcome, and any thoughts for the first time coming here?
Well, no, look, we've been sharing the stage on an audio stage for the last year, and it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to share it with you guys. I mean, there's so many things that we've all learned from, our past experiences, our hardships in life are there to help us to learn, to grow, to evolve, to become better versions of ourselves. And it's an honor to be able to help other people. And I think if anybody's listening out there and you're having a hard time in any way or form, reframe it and understand that maybe this is something that you can utilize in the future to help others in a positive way.
Absolutely. I love it. And hey, listen, if you are watching, reach out. If you have a question, if you want something addressed, if you want your question, and obviously we don't say names to protect the innocent and the non-innocent, but send us your questions. Again, we're working on tweaking ways, but we're all accessible, all out there. DM, PM, come over for, pancakes, whatever it takes. Get your questions to us. We'll get them on the air. Okay, guys, should we just rip into this? Because we do have a bunch here. So
let's do it.
Okay. All right. So here's what we have first. And there's so many. So I'm gonna go with this one. I am in recovery and am 16 months sober. Congratulations. That's amazing. The problem is sometimes I feel like the light finally went on inside, but I feel no one is there. How do I get to know the new person that I'm becoming? It's like I don't recognize my new self. Ooh, panel. What do you guys got? Talk about it.
I love this question. I think it's so powerful. And the fact, as Mark said, congratulations to whoever wrote this and to anybody else who's listening, who's in recovery. Congratulations on the hard work and keep it up. It's the hardest thing that you'll be doing, but it's so worth it. And it's something that you're going to continue to work on and grow all along. I'm passionate about this topic. It's something I teach about every single semester at my college. It's one of the modules in my academy. And it's because it's so prevalent to everybody. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, how much money you make, where you live, how old you are, addiction and substance use just affect you regardless, whether it's personally or somebody that you know. So I think one thing that happens through the process of developing addiction and then through recovery, your brain is constantly changing, whether it's from the chemical itself or just the behavioral change and the change in motivation. And we can actually see through neural imaging that the prefrontal cortex is damaged preferentially. And that is something that is similar across different types of addiction. So it doesn't have to be from a drug or from alcohol. It can also be from gambling, for example. We can see the same brain changes. And the prefrontal cortex is part of your executive functioning and your planning, and your personality is up there as well. And so when you hear people say, I feel like a different person, or if it's a family member saying, I don't even recognize my son anymore while they're struggling with this, it's because they are different people. And so for this person who's going through the recovery, there's hope because your brain is so plastic, it can also change. And who you were while you were dealing with the addiction, now that's in your past, and you can move forward and create this new person. And so it's one of those things. It's like, yes, you can't recognize yourself, but isn't that a good thing that you are different and you are growing? And so then, this is where I'm going to defer to some of the other people on the panel, because I could literally talk about this for months, but talk about some different techniques and things about finding new hobbies and habits and new communities, going to AA meetings, even if you haven't been for a while, because you're like, oh, I don't need that anymore. I'm fine. It's like, no, keep going. You're going to meet new people, and new ideas can come out that you can figure out not only what you like, but what you don't like, so that you can not do it again and keep growing. And we're all works in progress, and we're all continuing to grow. So
Dr. Haley, I want to dovetail with that very quickly. And I want to say that what is also happening, not just from a neurochemical perspective, but from a psychiatric perspective, is that change is possible and change is good. So when someone says, I don't recognize myself, or there's nobody at home, I say to them, or I say to you who's out there listening, yes, somebody is definitely at home, and you may bump into that somebody a little bit more often these days. And what I would ask is for you to get a sense of what your core values and core assumptions about life are. Get to know what you believe in, what you stand for. Somebody who's been through drug use or is now in the sober world has to become more accustomed to not numbing themselves from their feelings. Sit with your feelings, see what they're here to teach you, and recognize that there is such a thing as a sense of self. And your sense of self is growing more and more every day. Allow that to happen. You'll bump into this somebody who's in you, and you're going to love this somebody as time goes on.
I want to jump into, I couldn't have said it better, but I'm going to try to add to what you just both said so eloquently. When I was going through the thing that I talked about in the last session that we had here, and I hit this wall of severe anxiety and depressing feelings, it was so scary for me because I had been running for so long, and I feel very strongly that my drug was actually creating and running and doing like projects and work in a way. And I had to slow down and feel my feelings for the first time. And therefore, all of us are struggling with being sober. All of us, just like you said so nicely, Dr. Haley. And I think if I could combine the two, which I often try to do, because I love emulating your words, both you and Dr. Norman, is that when I put my hand on my heart and my belly, and it's a very simple thing to do, and I just sat with what was, because I couldn't run from it anymore. I did what Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I'm a big fan of, I was doing this work, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was creating this thing called space, and I was allowing the space, which was already there, to be. And it was very terrifying to not know what was there and to be with the unknown. But I'm inviting you, whoever wrote that question and anyone else who feels this question, to put your hand on your heart and your belly and take very deep breaths and just invite yourself to be with what you don't know, because there is where all the blessings are.
Beautiful.
And just well, I actually was probably drinking too much in my younger years. Got into sport, Irishman, obviously, with that kind of reputation as well. And small guy trying to impress, drinking far too much, and literally would probably sometimes, I would consider it now looking back almost like an alcoholic. And I realized what it was insecurity and ego. It was a sense of wanting to be the big man in front of the rest of the guys. It was a sense of wanting to have that confidence to be able to stand up and feel like I was important in some way or form. And it didn't serve me. And then when I eventually had a near-death experience and then changed my life and became much happier, I reduced almost down to zero my alcohol intake. And like yourself, I didn't know who I was. And also my friends that I'd chosen over those years would ask me while I was going out with them, are you not having a drink? My clients who I worked with who were stockbrokers, they would say, are you not drinking? And I felt even insecure then as well. And I think what you need to do is to really, truly go inward. And I think meditation is one of the most powerful things that really helped me to get to know myself, but also in a state of awareness, understanding that we all are a product of our parents, our preachers, our teachers, and past relationships and experiences. And that means that we sometimes have these parental programs that trigger us. And sometimes it's our parents actually who are drinking alcohol, and we tend to model them as well. It certainly was in my case. And when I realized what it was, those trigger points, what were the bits that didn't serve me, and through awareness and acceptance and understanding was able to then look at those and let go of those, then I stepped into the new version of myself, my better version of myself. And that's when I was able to let go of alcohol for good and realize it didn't matter what anybody said to me. I knew I was standing in my own best self.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Amen.
Wow. Guys, amazing. I learned so much from this show. I mean, I'm more than just eye candy. I'm the sponge. You know what I'm saying? You guys talking. Wait, why are we laughing? Okay. Anyway, great takes from everybody. We got to keep it rolling here. You know what? We got more questions, but prior to coming into this, I want to address Dr. Haley. You had a breakthrough in your household, and this time it's not the floor being destroyed from water. It's a positive one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's your son Henry, and I'll let you do the thing. What happened, and why don't you just take it from here?
So 2 days ago, he finally swam. So he is 4 years old, and 2 years ago, when we moved into our new house at the time, our then new house, it was our very first home that had a pool in the backyard. And so we opened the cover, after the winter, and literally when you say, you hear all these stories, oh, I turned away for 1 second, and then the worst possible scenario happened. And I turned, and my then 2-year-old was at the bottom of the pool, and it was frigid cold. The ice had just melted. It was horrible. So I jump in, I grab him, I pull him up. He's fine. Thank God everything turned out okay. But from that moment, that was such a traumatic experience for him. He didn't even want water on his face during bath time. He, even just like brushing his teeth, I'd, hold my hands up to have him drink out of my hands. And he was just terrified. So he's been absolutely terrified of water. And on Wednesday, so we've just continued to work with him and reinforcement and just try to get him to understand that, this is just part of, you have to learn how to swim, especially if we have a home with a pool in the backyard. Like, this is for your safety. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete, right? You don't have to ever learn how to swim 100 fly, but I just want to know that if, heaven forbid, you fall in again, that you can get to the side. It's so important. And so he jumped in on Wednesday, and I was there, and I filmed it, and it was amazing. And he turned and gave me 2 thumbs up. And it was just such a beautiful story of being able to overcome your fears. And this is something, it took him 2 years, and literally every single day working on having water get near his face. And then he just jumped in and he swam. And he could do it, and he was so happy about it. And you can tell, I'm still like gleaming. It was such a beautiful thing. And it just made me think about, what kind of fears are holding me back and preventing me from being able to take that leap of faith and go in and go for things like that. And what can we do to overcome some of those obstacles?
Brilliant, Dr. Haley. I want to jump in at this moment, if it's okay with everybody, because first of all, what you're saying in terms of psychology is that we all at times experience something traumatic in our lives. And as a result, we have what's known as a hypervigilance to the recurrence of danger. We're waiting for the next shoe to drop. It's going to happen again. It certainly will. That's what we tell ourselves. But that's not necessarily true. That's our mind telling us something that's not necessarily going to happen. It's natural to think that. And so it's important that we break through those fears before they own us. We begin to own the fears. And Henry, your sweet 4-year-old, broke through the hypervigilance that something bad will happen in water, and instead has now conquered that, which I think is wonderful. And in terms of our own personal fears that we carry, it's always important that we recognize the difference between a feeling and a fact. It's a fear that I'm going to be in trouble in the water, but it's not a fact. And we only act on fact. We never act on fear.
What do you think? I would love
Round.
to let's roundtable this real quick, because it's the cylinders are moving here. What's everybody toss out a fear? What's a fear that you have? I'm dying to know. I'll start off like, listen, I'll fight a pack of wolves, a 1970s motorcycle gang from a Hell's Angels movie. I don't care, whatever, but I am not diving off the boat into the ocean. I do not like deep water. I don't know what's in there. That's their land. That's not my land. Okay.
I have a good swim instructor to recommend.
Absolutely.
Me and Henry will be kicking it at the Y or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And I never had to my knowledge, a traumatic experience. I think I saw Jaws or something when I was 4. I don't know. But anyway, that's my gig. How about you people? Let's pull back the veil.
I have to say, I wouldn't be keen on jumping out of an airplane. And the reason being is because I've had a couple of operations on the digestive system, which sometimes when anxiety kicks in, it blows up my stomach. So I can't imagine being halfway out of an airplane, going down to the ground with my stomach blowing up and myself not feeling the best.
Those poor people underneath you. That'll be terrible. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So that would be one of my fears, which could be false evidence appearing real.
All right, we got airplanes, we got
Perfect.
deep water. What do you guys got?
One of my fears is dying without having a family of my own. And what I've learned how to do is be happy without it as of recently. Like, how yummy and enjoyable would it be to travel the world by myself and, allow myself to have children in other ways, because I've had thousands of students at this point, children all the way to adults. And I love my nieces, and, I always hear from my friends who are in unhappy relationships and they're like, you're so lucky. So I try to think about that. And then when we are, I'm kind of not really doing the game because I'm answering my own fear because I'm trying to counsel myself, but I'm always happy to take more, because I hear that from people I really admire, when you are, kind of in orbit at a certain place, then you get matched. So I don't want to be walking around going, I'm afraid I'm never going to get married and have kids. So instead I'm saying, I'm so happy, like Esther Hicks. I love my life. I love what I have, and I love what I don't have. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. That's my Esther Hicks.
Well, you save lots of money on toilet paper. I will tell you that. Let's go, doctor. I want to know what the doctors are afraid of, and don't say patients.
Arm wrestle, Norm. Who's going first?
I'll go first. I would say, only because it really fits with what my esteemed colleague Barb just said, which is that I actually have a fear that I will leave this world before my family has gotten enough of what I want to give them. And so, and I tell myself, as I ask everyone to tell themselves, there is a difference between a fact and a fear, but I honor the fact that this fear really motivates me to be a better father and a better spouse while I have the days, the human hands, and the brain to be able to affect the changes. That's the fact. The fact is I can make changes while I'm here. The fear is that I'm not doing enough, and I'm going to listen to my facts more than my fears.
I hear you guys, and I just think I suck. Okay, so Dr. Haley, deep water's got nothing on that. Wow. All right.
I know. I was thinking of maybe I should reevaluate. I should be.
He should have went last.
Of my children dying.
Norman goes last. All right, Dr. Haley, what's your fear?
So through this past year, I've put on the entrepreneurial hat, and with that has come a lot of self-reflection. And I never realized that I had such a fear of success for so long. A lot of people talk about fear of failure. And for me, I don't care if I fail. If I fail, it just means that I try again and I've learned something and I move forward. But the fear of success was almost paralyzing to me, that I didn't want to really put myself out there. And if you would ask me a year ago to do something like this, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. But now it's just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And it's because I have redefined the definition of what success means. Once I'm able to figure out what my definition of success is, then I don't have to be scared of it anymore. So
I have to say, I love that, Dr. Haley. And it reminds me, because before COVID, I used to do a lot of stage work on stage, doing motivational events. And one of the things I'd often do is I'd say to people here, stand up if you've ever been to a wedding. And of course, everybody's been to a wedding, so they all stand up. I say, right, anybody who hasn't danced at a wedding can sit down. And of course, they're all still standing because they've all had a dance at some stage. It's fantastic. So we're all dancers then. Right. And then I go up to the whiteboard and I draw a line vertically down and I say, right, how are you all feeling knowing that you're going to be dancing in front of your colleagues? And they're all fearful, don't want to do it, piss off, there's no way, and everything like that. And I tell them that anyone who doesn't dance is going to come up and dance with me afterwards. So then they have to do it, basically. So then I put the music on, normally the happy song, and they start giving it large, loving it. finish the song, and I go back up to the whiteboard and I said, how are you feeling now? And they all go, elated, fantastic, amazing. Can't believe I was worried. Only one time I've had a negative thing. And that's where one guy put his hand up and said, Doug, you could have played a slow song so I could have danced with this beautiful lady next to me. Other than that, always positive. And what it shows is that when you do step out of that fear, out of that comfort zone, it's amazing how you actually feel inside as well. So that's why take the step, even if it's a small step, and you'll find you'll have elation with it.
So does that mean you're jumping out of a plane soon, Doug?
Maybe.
We don't want a bloated Doug, so let's not. Okay, guys, listen. We can squeeze in one more, but we got to go quick on these hot takes. So maybe like a minute or minute and a half tops. My parents went through a bitter divorce. Should have happened years ago. I am 29 and don't want to talk about my dad anymore. He's sending all of us love, me and my brothers. He's sending all of us, me and my brothers, horrible text about how awful our mom is. What should I do? And before you answer that, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it's time for. The 30-second disclaimer while you think about your answer. So while the panel's getting ready to talk about divorce, the content heard here today is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified healthcare providers. Any questions you may have regarding medical condition or mental illness, never disregard professional medical advice. Delay and seek them because something heard here today. Woo! Let's go. What do you guys got?
I got something. I am a child of divorce in my late teens, meaning I was 18 when my dad left and I was 22. So the entire span of my college experience was my parents' mediation trial. They went to trial. It was awful. They were together for a total of 29 years. It was insane. And it really, really hurt. And I had to go through college and the beginnings of adulthood, not having any sort of safety net emotionally or financially. And it was devastating to me because I was in New York City for the first time and acting and getting agents, and I had no help whatsoever. And so what I want to say to this person, thank you for asking the question. It's so overlooked. People don't talk about adults who have to go through parental trauma and divorce nearly as much as kids. And they're all important. And sometimes it's even more devastating because your entire identity changes and your family's identity changes. So I just want to say kudos to you for asking the question and trying to get help. I would say get off the text with your dad and go and have time with him, because as someone who took years to forgive my father and created a podcast and is writing a book on forgiveness because mostly of my conversations with my father, I would say have as many face-to-face, force yourself to have face-to-face conversations as long as he's not physically or emotionally abusive, as often as you can, and just love him. He needs help too. And try to look past the words and go to the feelings and talk about new things. Don't talk about the past. Try as much as you can to jump into spiritual texts with him. I mentioned that last week, that once a week I study spiritual texts with my father, and we have grown so much. And now when I think of him, all I do is cry about how much I love him. That's my piece.
Wow, the life experience portion of that, unbelievable. All right, who has something on this?
I can add.
Go ahead, Doug, please.
Sure.
Well, I'm actually going through divorce myself now, and in Ireland you have to first get separated legally, and then a few years afterwards you're allowed to get divorced. And it hasn't been easy for my kids. I mean, they have suffered, I have to say, a lot. They were 9 and 11 when we actually got divorced. And there was a bit coming across from my ex. And I have to say, I let myself down at times as well, because it is really hard when, you've been living with your kids for 9 or 11 years and suddenly they disappear and you love them. And I think truly what happens is hurt people sometimes hurt people. And I think the important thing is to set the boundaries in place and say to your dad, look, I love you and I have a relationship with you. Your relationship with mom is different. And I just want to have a relationship with you. And if you'd like to have one with me, I'd really appreciate, in terms of boundaries, that you didn't badmouth the person that I also love, which is my mother. And also remember that he loved your mother. He was with your mother for a long time. And quite often what happens, I found, when I do relationship coaching, is that people come to me and say that their ex-partner was a narcissist. And what I actually say in terms of narcissist, it can mean, in terms of an acronym, neglected awareness, reflecting conditionings in suppressed self, instigating soul transition. And what I mean by that is that people that come into our lives sometimes mirror back areas that we need to self-improve on ourselves, or those suppressed emotions inside of here or inside of there can suddenly pop out after a while with being someone. And we don't want to look at them. We want to deny those emotions. We want to deny those traits in ourselves. And because of that, we point the finger at the other person, but we forget that when we're pointing the finger, actually there's three pointing back at us as well. And that's why it's so important to have understanding, compassion for him, but maybe help him in some way or form realize that maybe he's seeing a mirror in the effect of what he's seeing in your mother as well.
All right, a lot of content in there. Doctor?
One thing that I pulled out that really struck me from the question was when you said, and it was almost as an aside, like they should have gotten divorced years ago, right? So that to me makes it seem like it probably wasn't a very happy marriage, at least towards the end, and there might have been fighting and arguing in the home. So I was also a teenager, my parents divorced, and for me, it was almost I wish it had happened earlier, but I could blame all my outbursts on the fact that I was a teenager. So when my parents said something that I didn't appreciate, it's like, oh, you can't talk about my dad that way. And then the bratty adolescent girl would yell and have her little tantrum and then go on my way. Now, as an adult, if I was 29 and this were happening, I have the neuroscientist geek is coming out. So my prefrontal cortex is more functional. I'm going to have more ration and decision-making and more impulse control. And I'm probably going to hold myself back. And now I have to think about it and get anxiety about it instead of just saying how I feel. So I would encourage this person not necessarily to be that teenager with the outburst, right? And just say, Dad, shut up. You can't talk about my mom that way. But just as Doug said, like, have this relationship. I want to have a relationship with you, but I also have a relationship with my mom, and you need to respect that and set those boundaries and have that adult conversation and just make it clear, like, I'm not going to be a part of these text messages if you're going to continue talking poorly about my mother. You're entitled to your own opinions, but please don't talk about my mom that way, and I hope you understand that I would say the same thing to mom if she were saying negative things about you as well. So please respect that.
I love that. I love that, Dr. Haley. And I would add to it that the operative term in your answer is impulse control, right? Because we want to make sure that we don't jump in immediately with our dopamine saying, step away, this isn't fair, etc. And Doug, you said it beautifully. Hurt people. Healed people heal people. So in the name of impulse control, it would be wise to take a few steps back and decide, I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to get angry. I'm going to try to recognize that this person, my dad, is hurt and can't stop himself from hurting others. And as you said so beautifully, Barb, if you could rise above all of that hurt and just get to know your father in a different way, a spiritual way, perhaps through religion, perhaps through sport, something that brings the two of you together, you will rise above the hurt and spend more time healing.
That was amazing. And we got 60 seconds. So I want a final thought from everyone. So Doug, final thought, total 60 seconds. What do you got? Give me a sentence. Something, anything to land the plane here.
Just remember, everything that you're grateful for in terms of even the smallest things opens you up in terms of your subconscious to receive more in life. So be grateful for small things.
Perfect. Be grateful for little things. Ladies, anything?
I would say embrace the space that you can co-create with the divine in every moment.
Love it.
You are deep today, Dr. Haley. What do you got? What do you got, Dr. Haley?
I wish that everybody is more like Henry this week and overcoming those fears. Don't let them stop you. So be like Henry.
Henry!
Be like Henry.
Dr. Norman,
Jump in.
I would add, I would add dive in. There's a story where the first person that actually dove into the parting of the Red Sea was a man named Nachshon. And what Nachshon did is he said, look, we're just going to go forward and dive in. And with that became a whole new way of living and a whole new nation. So yeah, I would support that, but do it with impulse control. Don't dive in until you know the waters are safe.
I'm still working on impulse control. And with that, I'm impulsively going to shut the show down because we're out of time. That's it for this week. So for Dougie Diamonds, for Haley's comments, for Barb Bombs, and for Dr. Norman Nuggets, hey, this is MBVS, Mind, Body, Voice, Soul. We love you guys. Mental wellness. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. We will see you guys next week. Peace.